Yeah, you know what? Listen, it may not be the healthiest thing to jam myself with anti-sleep drugs and stimulants in over-the-counter gigantic cans, but at least I did something healthy and useful with it, like sit on my ass for 8 hours and beat Metaphor.
Yeah, there you go. This is the only job. This is truly the only job where you show up and then it's like, oh man, I'm so tired. I'm out of it. Yeah, how are you? I'm really out of it. Oh, perfect. Good. That's good. Use it. Use it. That's good though.
It's also the most like dog shit job in the world, or even like hobby if you stream as a hobby. Because like, thank God Paige also streams, so like the empathy is there, because like, oh man, oh, that Metaphor stream was rough. Oh, I'm so tired. Hold on while I move 40 feet so that I can sit down and play Metaphor to relax. No, it's different. No, it's different.
How do you explain? Oof.
No, it's different.
I swear, there's gonna be some great studies in a couple decades on this shit. Isn't it fun to be like pioneering into the unknown?
Yeah, dude. It's so fun
to create all the mistakes that everyone's gonna.
I'm guinea pigging myself.
Exactly. All the data is gonna be pulled from us. It's gonna be awesome. Okay, so let's go. No spoilers, but how'd that?
Okay, so
how do we
Metaphor
finish?
ends really strong.
Nice. Good.
My takeaway is that I really, really appreciate that Metaphor tried a bunch of different shit. And I think from a gameplay standpoint, it's definitely a more fun game to play. Like, the archetype system is better than the Persona system. But overall, I did not come away from it as strongly and as in love with it as I did for 3, 4, or 5 Persona. Okay.
You started talking about feeling your way towards the end about 2 weeks ago. So
yeah,
was the ending here a classic Atlus style? We're gonna linger as long as possible. The pacing doesn't.
Pacing's aces.
This is where we say farewell. No,
the pacing is aces. It doesn't overstay its welcome.
Excellent.
It gives you tons of time at the end. Like, I did in fact finish the game with like 10 days of like just going to bed.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to bed because I got to run out this calendar.
Wow.
Which is wild because I've never experienced that in an Atlus game before.
Yeah, when you press the touchpad and you see it says some people went straight to bed, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, no, you got time. You're good.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a couple things that start to happen that like are objective improvements in a vacuum, but I don't think they make the thing better overall. I think that the Persona style game has gotten weaker and weaker with their use of teleporting around conveniently.
Okay, so you don't have to travel and deal with the journey from location to location. But also, this is a game that's taking place in a large fantasy country versus it's like running around school, you know?
But I'm actually specifically referring to like teleporting to shops.
Oh, quick teleporting in town.
Yeah, so like I think back to P3, P4, P5 and how like you'd hop around to different areas. But you always had this thing where like, oh, you got to run down to Shibuya. And like you spent like a proportion of your character's daily life section moving from place to place through in the areas. Mm-hmm. You're at Brawlhaven, so I'll use Brawlhaven as an example. Like I never, ever spent any time in Brawlhaven after that first couple of days because it would be like, I'm going to the shop. I'm going to the Coliseum. I'm going to the Beetle guy, and just instantly run there. And so I actually like I didn't get the like the vibe of these places nearly as strongly. There's a couple towns at the end of the game that I barely spent any time in at all.
Interesting. Okay. I feel like I'm currently, so for me, I just completed the Brilhaven calendar event. And
which is cool.
It's cool. Also, it's this whole third section is an anti-dungeon. It's quite interesting.
It's very weird,
right?
And I really like that it's super, super weird.
Even combat expectations are super minimalized, and it's actually just like plot heavy. You know, as opposed to everything. Very, very strange and interesting.
This is the chill part of the game.
But in terms of how it feels about quick teleporting, I just had some thoughts on that because I have been, as once you get to town, you're like, okay, let me go to the armor shop, let me go to the sword shop, update, and you quickly get in and out and do your business without really stepping foot into some of the actual like sections of the town. And I noticed that once or twice, like I would run outside and see somebody that had like just a text prompt that wasn't there before. And talking to them was like a little activity for like, oh, hey, help me do this thing or that thing and raise your ranking with the people. And I was like, oh, so there's some good reasons to like hit the streets every now and then.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Like when you want to debate the gang, like the other candidates,
exactly.
Like you have to go check manually.
And there were a lot of days where I was looking to debate and I noticed I was like, I couldn't find anyone, you know? Going to check manually then involved like literally teleporting to each town and trying to figure out what was going on, whether anyone was there or not. And so I kind of had this thing of like, okay, as the ability to quick travel got better and better, I was like, this is awesome. And then it streamlines things. And then there's times where I'm like, you know, going back to the Gauntlet Runner and teleporting to Grand Trad is taking too long. I'm just going to go through the S-Link menu. And it says that Maria wants to talk, so you do it that way, and then you get there faster, right? You know, and like
you get there instantaneously.
You need to speed up the already instantaneous method of getting to another location. But no, that transition's taking too long.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of like okay, but when you see these people out on the streets that are worth talking to that have like some good stuff for you, you kind of be like, okay, hold on, back up a bit. Actually live in this town a little bit and explore it, you know? And I liked that I had like a reminder to go do that every once in a while. So I like that you have the option when you're in a hurry to do that for prepping stuff. But then if you kind of want to just have a day seeing what's around or stuff like that. And maybe I'm early enough that it's not at a full on like, okay, I'm
You're in there.
Okay. But I did feel like I was moving around too quickly and ignoring too much. And then the game gave me a good reason to kind of slow that down.
So that leads to, because that's like definitely to taste, right? Like, do you want to go really fast or do you want to vibe it out? And that leads to like part two of that for me is like, I don't think that the game's soundtrack is as good as P3, P4, or P5's overall. I think a lot of it. I think the really incredible tracks are incredible. I think the best piece of music in the entire game is the normal ambush battle theme.
Yeah. That's very good.
To the point where all of the boss themes, I was like, I wish this was a normal battle because the normal battle theme is so exciting.
I see. Okay. I feel that the normal town themes are usually just like, you know, melodic fantasy themes that are not standing out like the battle themes are and like a lot of the Esperanto stuff. But if your comparison point is the ba-da-doo, ba-da-doo, ah, you know, the funny like persona joy of like hanging out in the different cities and getting that bop going. You're not getting the bop running around the cities.
Yeah, so know? That's kind of like the core big point of these two micro points is like I did not have the humming along bop of navigating the game world at any point that I did from any of the Persona games.
See, I was super, like, the fucking Gauntlet Runner theme when you're on the road is an absolute banger. I love that shit every time, and I can't spend enough time on the road just because of how awesome it is to hear the
Gauntlet Runner stuff is
incredible. Running through dungeons, I think those dungeon themes have been excellent as well. I would just say, yeah, I'm like, if I'm thinking about it, I guess the day-to-day town stuff is fine, but you're not tapping along with it as you are with like P3, 4, and 5 day-to-day, you know?
Like, my last thing to say about the music is that it's like, the good stuff is good and the great stuff is great, but like, I remember beating P5 and then going to YouTubeRepeat.com and throwing the 10 hours rivers in the desert fucking link in there.
Yeah.
And just having that be the soundtrack of my day-to-day life for multiple weeks.
And yes.
And I don't feel that way about literally any song in this game.
Okay. See, I disagree, because I feel like because you know, it's funny, I just did this because I was creating my my stream music playlist, and I was going over Persona music and some Metaphor tracks as well, and I absolutely feel that like the academia themes, and like, yeah, I mentioned the Gauntlet Runner, the ambush battle, like a lot of those themes are like, I want those. I want those playing. I want to hear that shit. Those are the ones that stand out for me. And going over Persona as well, like it's the Rivers in the Desert and the Life Will Change, and basically a lot of the vocal tracks, you know, are the ones you're kind of looking for. There's some stuff in between there that like is filler that we don't really think about as much on that really long playlist. So I think in each of these cases, there's a lot of filler on the Persona tracks as well that you kind of are skipping past to get to the really good ones that you remember, you know, the casino infiltration and, you know, Arc and all these things, right?
So obviously this is like the most subjective according to taste kind of thing. Like, to some degree, I'm pretty sure I actually just prefer the style of like the more modern Persona soundtracks. What is not according to taste is people are going to tell you, hey, Woolie, don't worry, that final boss has hands. And let me tell you, the final boss does have hands. However, and this is an incredibly core point, the way that the archetype system works, you can give yourself those hands way more than you ever could in a Persona game. Like, the most busted, like, Hasutobi firing off, like, physical attack shithead you could ever fuse together in a Persona game, that would be pretty good. You can smash the archetype system over your fucking knee and just break the game mechanically entirely.
So I've started to feel that, because where I've hit at this point is I'm looking at all the second tier and above archetype evolutions, and I can just kind of look and preview what they get. And the last skill on each of those non-base archetypes is
pretty good.
Is game breaking in a lot of cases. Yeah.
You get the tier 3s and tier 4s, and you look at these and you're like, you see every now and then you'll see a skill and you're like, that skill by itself can wreck the whole game. And that's before you even, like, you know, fill up the rest of the inheritance with just all passives that support it.
There's another type of upgrade I like seeing, which is this dual tech is actually now a single tech on this particular archetype. That's a fun one.
And now the new dual tech is the triple tech equivalent of whatever that was.
You just scale it up by 1.
So we can add Metaphor to a list of games that I have gotten to the end to and optimized the final boss out of existence and had to be told later what it does.
You skipped phases from doing too much damage.
I skipped every mechanic the final boss had. I did not see it do even one thing.
Oh, no.
All phases. The whole way through.
Oh, boy. Okay.
And the final boss does cool stuff and has cool mechanics.
Well,
and I
had
to be informed of them later.
Is this what you wanted? Is this the conclusion that you have fought for?
So we had a really me and the chat had a very interesting situation where I grinded a little bit around Dungeon 4, and they said you should be fine to beat most of the rest of the game, but there's a bunch of fights that are really hard. And then I went into, there's a bunch of optional bosses you can do before the final, and I didn't grind again and just completely fucking steamrolled them because I understood how to use the archetype system and what to equip and what to not equip.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you know what? Since the final boss is going to be the final boss, will probably be a multi-phase affair. You know what? I'll grind out the archetypes on the main character, right, for the stat boosts, and just set up my party in such a way that I found something that worked, and it worked real well because for like 11 bosses in a row, I was doing the exact same thing on every character on every turn, and
just the winning stack.
Like I found, like, this person casts debilitate, this person does the strike attack, this character does the buff attack. You know, like the cycle, and it's like, oh, I have solved metaphor.
I feel like what happened in the last couple of side quests off the main was I got there and then I started swinging at the enemies and they would die before a fight would happen. And I went, oh shit, I'm a bit too strong actually, because the grunts are not engaging. And then the regular tough things are coming in yellow. And I was like, huh, I didn't try grinding, you know?
Yeah, so if you ever get to the point where, so I initially a couple weeks ago was like, this is one of the best systems ever because you never have to fight trash ever again, right? Cutting your experience in half on auto kills is not enough because you're still gaining a bunch of experience by just mowing through them because there's no threat. There's no reason you would ever avoid them. And I found that if you ever get out in front of the game on a level basis, the game will never catch back up to you.
Yeah.
It will never catch back up to you.
And even in terms of like just getting a lot of like heroes incense and dropping it on the archetypes I want for the better skills, that I'm like, okay, this one gets that great skill at level 6. Fuck it, spend it, get that one, you know. Yeah. And I'm like, the pace that I'm getting those at is, yeah, it's definitely outpacing the challenges in question. But it's like, this is without me particularly trying to get
I know.
ahead,
that's my point. It's like, I thought I was doing that, like, because I like to grind out and get a bunch of levels, and I did do that, but I grinded like 10 levels above the recommended, like on Dungeon 4. And then never did it again. And the game was with 40% of its remaining runtime, it was never able to catch up.
Okay. So here, something I've said about P3, P4, and P5 is, to me, P3 has the best final boss, P4 has the best culprit, and P5 has the best crew. Those are the strengths of those individual games for
okay, well, this has the best culprit and it has the best crew.
Okay.
Easy.
Okay.
Easy, no question.
Cool. Interesting.
Absolutely the best cast they've ever had. No, absolutely no doubt. It's all winners.
Awesome. Okay. Interesting.
Even the only member of the crew that I'm like not like madly in love with is still like a really good character that I like.
So far we're on track. So far, like, all the pieces that I'm looking at seem to be really high contenders. But when I compare those games together, those are the takeaways I'm kind of left with, you know? Yeah, it would take a lot to have anyone like surpass what Heisme is up to at this point.
Heisme is the best character.
It's kind of like,
I don't think you'll find anyone that will disagree with you.
It's kind of broken, you know.
Heisme, like the cast is really strong. Like Stroll is absolutely the best first bro guy that joins the party they've ever done
because he's not an idiot.
He's actually the smart guy in the gang. He's forward thinking and intelligent and compassionate. But Heismay is like a full leap beyond the rest of the cast in gravitas.
And
the fact that he's a cute little Batman.
And I think, look, if we're, because you have to compare fucking Junpei to Yosuke to Ryuji, and Ryuji is easily like the winner of those three.
Okay, misogynist, homophobe, possibly closeted homophobe,
loud guy.
Like guy who talks too loud. Like, oh, what should he, you know?
And yeah, Stroll is not those archetypes at all. But and that's the thing, is like he kind of like
Stroll's the main character of a Fire Emblem.
Okay,
tagging along with
okay, sure. Yeah, but he's like, you know, the naive, like you know, but and kind of silly at times, but ultimately like simple and good person, you know. He's almost like a protagonist, like, yeah, like even in the way he looks and stuff. Like he doesn't have the like, oh, your best friend's the horny one thing going on, you know.
He's not played for goofs. In fact, Hulkenberg is usually the one played for goofs, and
she's holding her head even higher up.
Yeah,
know?
And she's played for goofs because she's the most serious member. So I was like, okay,
yeah. In fact, so far, like no one is the horny one. I mean, well, maybe the fourth member or fifth. You know, I don't know. Like it feels as if there's a like just increase in honor and nobility. Although, yeah, my latest party member is a little bit like, ooh, you know, mass dancer.
There is very little romantic or sexual content in this game. Not none, but little.
Yeah, and it's like the whole S-Link system in our brains is like synonymous with like who you're gonna date, right? Who you're gonna pick? Who's gonna be?
It's totally divorced.
Who you're gonna get to 10 with? You know, and here it's just like, like, ooh, are those two an item? Nah,
no,
not interested.
Absolutely not. No, they're not. But yeah, no, Metaphor is really strong. It's an incredibly easy recommend. I loved it. I think the gameplay is fantastic. I think it's brain dead that you can't fight the super boss until you're on New Game Plus.
That sucks. I hate that.
I think that the game gives you so many tools to break it that the game can't keep up with you if you decide to break it at all. And like the system they built is just asking you to synergize and optimize and all sorts of shit.
Yeah, and I guess, like, again, I was feeling this strength while not attempting to grind, so like even at normal pace. And the interesting thing too is like while you can spend time going out into areas and kind of picking fights and stuff, it feels like the least useful way to spend your time, you know, by comparison to everything else you could be doing. So, like, you know, Coliseum is cool, and like there's some great stuff to get.
Okay, hey, I'm
there's some good stuff
right
to get there.
Coliseum has some fucking
Oh
shit
yeah,
in there.
I realized. I absolutely realized that, and I've been doing that. I'm like, great. I want to wait to like get some fights in and build some XP and use my builds while getting fights that are worth it, and that feels like the way. But like otherwise, just going out and then running in circles just feels like a complete waste of a day. Something I noticed as well that I feel is this is more of a, I guess, an overall thing that the Atlus has been doing since I guess P5. No, yeah, P5 is probably where they began doing this. And they've solved an incredible problem. around P5 is when, because they've always had a thing in these games where you talk to somebody, their portrait pops up, and then you see their 3D model also doing the thing, you know?
Yeah.
But the 3D models have not always been the most expressive, right? Like, it's only as of the more recent games where the 3D models are simultaneously voicing and or animating the discussion, their voice mouth flaps and their face expressions and things like that are going. I feel like thinking back to maybe like Golden or so, you kind of just got the like vague RPG gesture.
You had PlayStation 1 Resident Evil voice acting gesturing where they're miming.
Yeah,
they're like, don't open that door with
exactly,
the arm going out.
Exactly,
and,
and a lot of the weight was carried by the emotions, like the sweat drops coming off of them and stuff like that, you know. But yeah, when you think of like 5 and 3 Reload and now Metaphor especially, the 3D models are, you can watch them the same as the art can, and they're both just doing their jobs. The thing with 3D models, as we know, a problem has always been that they, like with Castlevania, sometimes fail to convey the artwork and the right expression and the right facial like subtleties and details, right? 3D models will work sometimes from some angles and fail spectacularly from other angles. I always like it's a hit or miss even when they do an incredible job. And I feel like, so for example, in this game, Luis, his 3D model is amazing, and you can often see great expression and detail coming off of that in game, while his artwork on the side is just crushing it. Showing you both at the same time covers for any situations where the 3D is kind of failing, because the artwork is going to make up for that in a way. Do you understand what I mean? So there are times...
I absolutely know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So there are times where the 3D models, like, just it's not the exact perfect angle. It looks like it's okay, but it's not conveying the emotion enough, right? Talking to Brigida, for example. Brigida is a really good one where, like, she has like her makeup and the actual, like, extra lines and things that they have on the detail on her face. There are some expressions she makes where she's like, you know, sad in her story, and the 3D model just looks a little dead-eyed and the angle doesn't convey it, but you see the little shift in the artwork on the side, and that carries the feeling over where the 3D model failed to do so. It's a really great option select that they run through the entire game.
So here's where I get to be really unfair, because the standards and expectations between these two games are different, but they're so directly comparable that I must. So Persona 3 Reload came out earlier this year. Persona 3 Reload's lip flaps and general 3D model animation during the discussions that you are talking about right now are way better than Metaphor's. Metaphor has basic lip flap talking, and like you'll see, and it's, first of all, it's synced to the Japanese voiceover, because like sometimes you'll see
they overflap.
Will's mouth go up and down when it's not correct.
Totally.
And it's not lip synced either. Whereas Persona 3 Reloads was like absolutely lip synced and to whatever language you had, and it looked much better. And like Reload was like doing old cutscenes. Right, and old, really old dialogue, and had, you know, they're remaking it, so it's not exactly fair. But there is something about Reload that really stood out to me extremely strongly, and this put me down a mental path to find out that had me checking out the like Josh Sawyer's post-mortem on Pillars of Eternity 2. And it's about voice acting. And so in Persona 3 Reload, every single S-Link is voice acted in its totality. And so is every single story event. In Metaphor, there's a shit ton of voice acting. And then you hit the 80% mark, and then more and more and more scenes that are really important just start to not have voice acting at all.
Okay, they just do the one bark at the top of the line.
Yeah.
But therefore,
including like a bunch of dialogue with your party in the final dungeon of the game that seems really vital, that it seems very important. And the first and last Bond link are fully voice acted in Metaphor, but the victory lap Bond links aren't.
Okay.
Which sucks a lot. It's the part of the game I wanted to hear the characters act out the most.
Okay. I've noticed that the links themselves, like the events you go on, are a mix. Some scenes have it, some scenes don't, you know?
Yeah, it's the first and the last one. It's 1 and 8 are fully voice acted.
But there's also lines or moments.
Yeah, a line here or there.
Like when you start out the date or whatever, there will be a scene that has like the full lines, and then if they go to a change of location, then it'll go into the
lines are gone.
The lines are gone, exactly. Yeah.
It started to get like strange in the last month of the game. And obviously I'll ask chat to back me up with some yays or nays if they noticed it. But like just lots and lots of inter-party conversations of various levels of gravitas that I'm just sitting here going like, I really wish this was fucking voice acted.
So some of that was
because the actors are all great.
Front loaded then. They kind of I guess it staggered off towards the end.
And this led to me going back and finding out there's the Western game equivalent of when this happened. So in your traditional like CRPGs, like a Pillars or a Baldur's Gate, you'd either have like really important story moments that were voice acted and like character introductions, but beyond that it would be like barks or like a line here or there, right? So Pillars of Eternity 1 is like the best example. And that gives them a lot of writing freedom because they can change the writing like super late. You don't have to lock in super early. And I watched Josh Sawyer's post-mortem on Deadfire 2, and he basically describes that when Larian's Divinity Original Sin 2 came out, that had full voice acting for literally every single spoken word in the entire game. And it kind of ruined it for everybody, because that is now the standard going forward.
Unrealistic though that might be.
Yeah, and so Pillars of Eternity 2, despite the fact that they were like more than halfway done through the game, the order from on high from their publisher came down that said, game's got to have full voice acting now. And they went, oh, wish we had planned for that beforehand. And now with Baldur's Gate 3, that expectation is even more cemented.
Baldur's for sure.
Like every single random character in the world's like fuck off town dialogue is voice acted.
Here's the thing though, with those shortcomings, and as far as Atlus is concerned though, with if they front load and then have some stuff that's crucial that's not missing later, I feel like the approach they've taken same thing with the dual art style. I feel like the approach they've taken has been to overwhelm you with things to look at to confirm the emotion that you're supposed to be feeling. So when someone's saying something, you have the art, you're reading what they're saying, you have the 3D acting it out, or the 3D animation playing it out, and then you have the bark at the top of the line going, like, no, or whatever, as it says, like, hey, this can't be happening, and the approach is to kind of give you an overwhelming amount of information with each line to look at or check or hear that you never stop to think like for a second.
It's absolutely adequate to understand the emotional tone of the scene, but I don't want the final time I talk to these characters to be a text box. I want to hear Heismay's actor tell me about how Heismay feels. And it's one of those things where like every Atlus game had this to some degree. Like, most of the time S-Links weren't even voiced, right? And it's just like, only the really important story stuff is the stuff that gets full voice acting. But after they did P3 Reload, where it's like every single thing, now I'm spoiled. Now I'm like, oh, like every line of dialogue spoken by Gourmet King is voiced in Persona 3 Reload. Are you telling me that Gourmet King is more important than hearing the end of Heiseme's story about his child?
Yeah.
I think they are saying Gourmet King are more important.
Yeah.
No, it's about budget. It's about they had more budget for voice acting on Reload because
yeah, and you know that there's a you know that like there's a version of the game that they have going where like all the lines are being inserted over the fact, and you know they just have like the generic barks there at first, and I can imagine them replacing it. Yeah, there's times where you see the flaps desync as well and stuff. So, yeah,
and it wasn't like me going, "Darn this game! Oh, how could they be so lazy?" It's it's like I want to talk to this character very badly. And I want to hear what they have to say.
And you know it's very likely that they kind of just they take that full script, they roll through it, and they go, we have 1,000 lines we can highlight for each character here to be voiced, you know, and then the rest we just can't do. And so you're just gonna pick out what you think are the emotionally resonant ones, and that'll be that, you know. But yeah, okay, I can see that being a bummer.
It only started to really like pop up like for real during like the last dungeon, because like shit is popping off and I'm like, this would have been voice acted in earlier dungeons.
Okay.
But yeah, for the Western games, like Divinity, Original Sin 2, and Baldur's Gate 3 have like totally ruined it, and like there's no going back. Of interest, when Josh was talking about it during his post-mortem, he said that Pillars 1 did not have full voice acting, and one of the biggest pieces of criticism they got was that it was really hard to get people to stream Pillars of Eternity 1 because streamers don't like huge, big blocks of text.
Disco fucking Elysium.
And as a person who, despite everyone wanting me to stop, streamed the entirety of Pillars of Eternity 1, let me tell you, I did not want to read gigantic big blocks of text.
So formatting makes a difference, because Disco Elysium's paragraphs rolled through on that ticker and you feel them like pages of a book. And visual novel style line by line blocks appearing in this, in Metaphor, and in Phoenix Wright, which I'm currently playing, give you a little bit more chance to digest piece by piece. Even though you know you're in for a while, it just doesn't feel as daunting as when that full fucking dialogue list goes up on Disco's case, you know? It really is, it for streaming purposes, it's, you know, that's not the average gamer's like situation, but like it fucking feels horrible and tiring and exhausting when you see it like that. That made or break the voice acting added to the final cut.
Oh, absolutely.
Like saved the game there, and it's wild because I'm like, this is one of the best games ever made. You know, that to kind of imply that.
Looked at that game, and Paige looked at that game, and I'm sure a dozen or hundreds of other streamers looked at that game, and they're like, well, I'd be insane not to play this on stream, but I don't feel up to being able to read all this dialogue on stream, so I guess I'll just wait and hope.
Yeah.
And like that turned out well for us on Disco.
Also, it turns out that, and not only was it voice acted, it was like unbelievably, phenomenally voice acted at that. So
yeah,
cool. Okay, what do you think your hour count was at around?
I was 90 something, 91, 92, something like that.
Got it.
I feel no desire for an upgraded version.
Well, yeah. Okay. But
like no, like Pete, like once they started doing those, you looked at them, and like when Persona 5 came out, you could be like, oh, I wonder what they could change and upgrade it or whatever, and like you could kind of see it. Yeah, no, the archetype system is extremely complete, and the bonds that you have are extremely succinct and well formed, and like very succinctly.
I could see the updates that come with these versions, though. I could see a part of it almost being like, we can't help it. We just see little things that we're like, we can make that a little bit, you know?
Oh, there is like a hole in the game.
Okay.
There is a part of the game that you get to, and you're like, this used to be a full-scale dungeon with a whole month associated with it.
Okay.
And we're not going to get to do it. Like, you can see where they just went, nah, and took it out.
If they, if the promise that was made is the promise that's kept, and this is all going to be DLC and not new versions for sale, then whatever. That's fine. I'm down with whatever, extra stuff gets thrown in, as long as it can be thrown into the existing progress I have. Cool.
But yeah, Metaphor is a good game. Thumbs up. It's on sale right now on Steam, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, it's 25% off, which at least one person in my chat was like massively fucking pissed off about, because they're like, I beat the game like yesterday and it's already 25% off. It came out like 8 weeks ago.
Well, isn't this just like a holiday, like Black Friday
but it's
thing?
pretty uncommon for Atlus games to go on sale within their first year of release.
Oh, even...
It was like great for everybody that didn't buy it. Not as great for people who bought it on the first day.
I feel like holiday sale things almost don't count, because it's not a permanent discount on the game, right? It's like these...
Yeah, but holiday sales also exist in like a weird alternate reality. Like, Ubisoft can't make up its mind as to what Far Cry 5 should cost, because Far Cry 5 is either $79.99 every single day of the year, unless there's a sale, at which point they always cut it 90% down to $7.99. Like, so which is the real price? Because it's on sale for $7.99 literally every time it goes on sale.
Because, yeah, I feel like a permanent slash is one where you feel more like, god damn it, as opposed to like a window of time where it doesn't feel as bad to me.